You're listening to the Travis Makes Money podcast presented by GoHighLevel.com. For a free 30-day trial of the best all-in-one digital marketing software tool on the planet, just go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis. Hey, what's going on, money makers? Welcome back to the Travis Makes Money podcast, where it's our mission to help you make more money. If you're new to the show, we release brand new conversations with unconventional money makers every single day of the week. So if you have not yet, please go to your podcast app of choice right now. Follow the show, subscribe there, so you never miss an opportunity to make more money. And if you're feeling up for it, leave us a quick rating review as well. It also just helps out the show tremendously, helps us know we're not just shouting into a void, into a vacuum. I don't know if you guys realize this, but there's no comment sections on podcasts. So the only way that we know that you're listening and that something's helpful that we're sharing is if you leave us a quick rating review. So please do that. Give us some feedback so we can make the show even better. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about selling with my new friend, Drew Norton. Drew, known as the Everyday Sales Leader, is a dynamic self-development coach, sales consultant, and co-host of the Everyday Leader podcast. With a background spanning sales, hiring, recruiting, leadership, and training across diverse industries, he's a seasoned expert in cultivating individual and organizational success. So as you guys know, this is a topic that we talk about on the show fairly frequently. Sales is one of those things. It's one of those high leverage skills that if you are not used to making a good amount of money, if you're not used to having any control over your schedule and over your ability to earn more money, sales could be a really, really great way to kind of get your feet wet without taking a ton of the risk that it is to start your own business and things like that. So, Drew Norton, what's up, dude? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, Travis, super excited to be with you and your listeners today. And yeah, excited to dive into this topic a little bit with you.
Let's do it, dude. Let's first off, tell me how you made your first dollar ever, and then how you made your most recent dollar.
Yeah, great question. In sales or ever?
Ever.
Ever. First dollar in sales was probably selling candy after Halloween in third or fourth grade.
After Halloween, so you sold through your own stock of candy.
Yeah. I was like, man, everybody's out. I've got some left over. Let's see if I can make some money. I think my entrepreneur journey started back then. The school shut it down though the same day. They wouldn't let me sell.
They wouldn't sell your own candy?
Yeah. I don't know what the problem was, but yeah, that was the first dollar I made. Probably the last dollar I made. Either I own some real estate, so rent comes in every month, and just brought on a new client recently.
Nice. So that's a good way to do it, man. So let's talk about your the beginning stages of your professional career here. What were you in high school? Were you already kind of thinking that this was going to be a path for you, or what were your initial goals?
No, not at all. In fact, I would have never thought I would have done sales. I was good in school, but I was pretty I've always been kind of an introvert and shied away from getting out and making a name for myself or talking to other people. And in college, I had friends that started doing door-to-door sales in the summer. I think I've seen I think Sam Taggart's been on your show before, and I got started in the door-to-door space. Started selling satellite TV door-to-door while I was going to college. Yeah, I feel old saying that now.
I did that for a little bit.
Did you? Right on.
Satellite.
Got into pest control. Sold insurance for several years, and most recently, before I started coaching and consulting, I sold solar and ran some pretty large sales orgs.
Okay,
doing that.
So really, a lot of door to door.
Yeah, a lot of it door to door. Spent 5 or 6 years where I got a real job and got off the doors, and but I found myself getting back into it.
What was that? That was the solar space.
Solar space. Yeah, very much.
That was where I started on doors.
Okay.
Was awesome. Solar. Yeah. Solar alarms, water purification were like the big 3 that I sold, but dabbled a little bit in, did some satellite stuff, did some roofing, windows, things like that. But yeah, solar alarms and water purification were really the ones that I ran with. Yeah.
So awesome. Yeah. It's crazy how many people have a background doing something like that. So
yeah, well, it all translates, right? Like that's why this is a topic that I talk about on the show frequently. Like we've probably had, I don't know, 10 sales experts on this in the last like 2 to 3 months. It's just because I just genuinely believe that it's one of those ways that you can start learning how to control your income.
Absolutely.
Like it never made sense. Even as a college student, it just didn't make sense to me that I would get paid the same hourly wage for a job that I was doing objectively better than the other person sitting next to me. It just drove
Yeah.
me crazy to think about that. I just wanted something that was going to reward me for the additional effort that I was
Yep.
prepared to put in. And sales was just one of those things that checked off that box immediately.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel
there's
like I'm talking to myself, Travis.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
hearing you say that.
Let me just interview me. Yeah.
Right.
That's the whole thing, right? Is like if you're sitting there making 40 grand a year, 50 grand a year, 60 grand a year, there's just not that many things that you can do to significantly impact that income stream other
Right.
than getting an additional job doing the same thing that you're doing working for somebody else. Like
Yep.
there's not many levers that you can pull that which but if you're in sales and you're making 60 grand, it's like, well, you can just go put in more effort and turn it into 80 grand. It's just, and then if you do have an intention or desire of to start your own company, your business, sales is a skill that will help like dramatically increase your overall odds of succeeding in that thing.
Yeah.
What was
Absolutely.
what was your experience making that transition from salesperson to starting your own company?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's come from a couple things, and a quick little story. A few years ago, when I transitioned out of a 9 to 5 sales job to getting back into solar, being out on my own. Um, I kind of always viewed like, hey, what help can I really give people? Like the people I go to church with, what are they going to call the sales guy for other than help moving something here or there?
Yeah.
And so, I never really viewed sales as a skill that could be a part of so many different parts of my life.
Mm,
And then when I made this transition a few years ago, I doubled down and realized, hey, I'm going back to all commission. I've got to step up my game. I've got to level up myself, and was, more time down in books and YouTube than I'd been in years. And we were my wife, I've got a wife, we've got four beautiful kids. I was selling out of town, a couple hours away. It was just the closest market that was good for me to sell in. Had an apartment there, and one afternoon when I went to come home, it was a normal day. My wife was there at the apartment. We were getting ready to head back home. As I pulled up to the apartment, I heard an ambulance come in. Thought that was strange. Walked in the door and found my wife over our 6-month-old son at the time. He was barely breathing. I could tell something was wrong. Those sirens I heard quickly. Paramedics were running in behind me. Loaded my wife and, well, my son and my wife into the ambulance and took off. It was kind of a moment that really changed our lives.
no kidding.
And the good news is he's good. He's fine. It was an accident. We took 6 or 8 weeks to kind of figure out what happened. Really, it came down to he was suffocating in his pack and play. He had a
Wow.
hernia. There's a broken slat. Anyways, we didn't know what that was. He was misdiagnosed with a heart condition at the time. So my wife, she dealt with a ton of trauma from that event, ton of
Yeah.
PTSD, anxiety, stress that came from that. I mean, no mom should have to pick up her son lifeless and limp and gray out
Yeah.
of his bed. Luckily, she did CPR. There's a million miracles I could tell you about it, but we don't have time for that today. And um, anyways, we found out he was fine, but that stress and that PTSD from that event took a lot of time for my wife to recover.
Mm,
And what we've kind of both realized is before I changed careers and made that sales change and reinvested in myself, I wasn't the husband she was going to need for that next year and a half as she went through that. And I believe a lot of her recovery came through prayer, through working with professionals. But a lot of the sales techniques and lessons I learned had helped me become a better communicator, and really came to believe like, hey, sales is life. The things I've been learning have helped me communicate with my wife, helped her talk through, discover some things she didn't realize about herself, or about that accident, helped me be a better listener.
mm,
And so that was kind of a big turning point for me, where I realized, hey, a lot of the things I've been learning in sales, I can use outside of my job.
right.
And And then, yeah, so I stayed in solar, and a couple of years ago, just had this burning desire as I was building and running big teams. I got more satisfaction out of seeing people come in and do it and do really well at it.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, it was great to do it, great to make big money, but the most fun thing in the world is, you know, when I take a 20-year-old kid in who's never made more than 20 grand in his life, and next thing he knows, he's making six figures or 150,000 or 200,000 in a year. That was really exciting. So I also realized a lot of business owners, they get into business. If they don't have a sales background, they quickly realize how important it is to have that. And a lot of people view sales in a negative light. And I just want people to see that, hey, sales is life. Selling can be noble. Selling is a
yeah.
form of leadership. And so, yeah, that's what ultimately led me into coaching and consulting. And I started with another firm about a year ago, and a few months ago split off and to be more sales focused.
How do you help people fix that mindset? Because that is it is prolific. You know, it's very common to have that misconception that in order to be a good salesperson, I have to be a bad person almost. Like people buy into this belief system. Why is that?
Yeah. It's easier said than done. One, I think you can't fix it if you don't recognize it first. So if you're not willing to recognize the thoughts and feelings you have about sales that aren't useful or aren't helpful. So that's usually where I start, is like, hey, I ask people I work with, like, what comes to mind when you hear the word sales, or when you think about selling somebody, what comes to mind? You've probably heard people say, Travis, like, oh, well, I don't sell anyone. It's like, no, I do sell people. That should be viewed as a good thing, to help someone get what they want or help someone to change their life through your product or your service. So we start with that. And then I think part of it is just, I've found that I can't change my thoughts unless I change how I talk. And so it's getting them to start speaking differently about themselves and how they view themselves and how they view sales. Call that affirmations, I guess, if you want. And really just being mindful of it, and then just starting to change the way you talk about what you do and who you are.
Yeah, to me, it's a foundational belief thing. It's like if you were never around people who were good people who also happened to be in sales, then you just get this idea of the used car salesman personality type, of the like pushy, annoying scammer who's out to make a quick buck on you and take full advantage of and max out each commission type of a thing.
Right.
They tend to think about the extroverted person who, you know, and they immediately, people just go, well, I'm not that person. You know, I can't force people to buy bad deals, and I can't talk to that many people on a daily basis and become friends with them and try to build rapport. That's just not me. That's not who I am. What I found, and you mentioned this very beginning of this interview, that you said you were an introvert, and I would also classify myself as an introvert. And frankly, some of the best salespeople I've ever met in my life are introverts. And it is not, you do not have to be an extroverted people person in order to be good at selling. In fact, I think it might even be a disadvantage in the long run, to be honest, because that's like the biggest belief change I think that I will try to work with people on, is that good salespeople are not just maximizing their commissions and taking advantage of people. That's a bad salesperson. You know what I'm saying? Like a good salesperson is somebody who's there to solve a problem for somebody who has a problem that needs to be solved. All it is you believing enough in your product and service to believe that this is a good fit for the other person. If you have that foundational belief, then the only thing that's required from there is to transfer that belief to the other individual.
Yep.
That's it. It doesn't require you to make things up. You don't have, like, I would train salespeople, man, and they would put themselves in positions because the customer would ask them something and they knew the answer was going to not be the answer the customer wanted to hear. So they would just make something up.
Right.
And so like they'd be talking to me afterwards, and I'd be asking them about the deal, and they like tell me, well, I said that, like they asked me this and I said this, and I was like, well, why would you say that? That's not true. And it's like, well, I freaked out. I knew that they weren't going to like the answer. It's like, well, that's part of the deal. Like in fact, it actually builds more trust if you're just honest with people and are willing to admit this kind of glaring gap in your product or your service or something. It's like, you can't be all things to all people. So you just have to say, look, this is something that we're kind of weak in, but the reason that we do it this way is so that we can do it this way. And then you highlight the strengths that you have rather than focusing on the weaknesses. But if you're just dishonest with people, then that's where the stereotype keeps,
Right.
proliferating. It's not about that. It's about actually helping people solve problems.
Yes. 100%.
What are
Yeah, no,
some,
it's interesting.
yeah, go
Oh,
ahead. Go ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say, it's interesting the times I've told people, hey, you know what I have for you is not a good fit. Like they're almost begging me then to do it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I
Mm-hmm.
think people are yearning for more authentic salespeople. Like
Absolutely.
people want someone to help them discover what they need, and they want people to be honest with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you can get that foundational belief, that the only things that I ever failed at in terms of selling, bro, was that it was a product or service I didn't fully believe in.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it was really, really hard for me to sell stuff that I wasn't 100% on board for. It just like, whenever I'd get down to the objection overcoming, I would just be like, yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? Like that's a
Yeah,
great objection. And frankly, if I were you, I wouldn't do it either. You know what I mean? Like it was like I was too honest for being able to sell things that I just couldn't get behind. But that's again one of those misconceptions. It's like, you don't have to just sell whatever to whoever. It's like, find something you genuinely believe in. And
right.
that's kind of the advantage of being an entrepreneur. If you're learning sales, is that theoretically, if
Yeah,
you took the time to build a product or service, you probably believe in it to a certain extent. So
yeah,
if you're not building your own product or service, find one that you genuinely really believe in, that you like. What are the things that you use the most in your life? What are the purchases that you've made that you're really happy that you've made? And how can you, help evangelize that for other people? We all do it. Everybody does it.
yeah,
You buy your iPhone and rave about it, and you know what I mean. Like
yeah,
you're already engaged in the activity, even if you don't think you are, right?
yeah. Yep. So good.
In every aspect of your life. What are some things that you feel like have kind of popped up for you as being a sales trainer now that you're just realizing it's like it's everywhere, man? Like you can't get away from it. It exists everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the realizations I had is when I started doing this, I thought, oh, I've done sales for over a decade. Like I don't have any negative beliefs about sales anymore. And the thing I came to realize is that I've had to work on since is I sometimes cared too much what people viewed, how people viewed me because I was in sales.
Yeah.
That's not useful either. So and I think there's a lot of business owners that we've kind of spoken a little bit about this, that shy away from it. Oh, well, I don't sell anything, right? Or they don't want people to think that they're going to try and push a product or service. And
Yeah.
it's like, hey, if I really believe in my product, the worst thing I could do is not influence someone to buy it if it's a good fit for them, if it's the
Mm-hmm.
right thing for them. And so I would say about half the clients I work with, it's honestly, it's more the mindset stuff. They just have these mental blocks or beliefs about selling. In fact, one of my best salesmen I ever had when I did solar, he wasn't great technically. Like he wasn't like, I couldn't send a guy out to follow this guy and learn to do what he
Mm-hmm.
did. He was so um uh,
Unconventional.
yeah, so unconventional. He just kind of shoot from the hip kind of style, but he believed in what he did, and that's why I think he was ultimately successful. Where it's
Mm.
like you can have all the right words and the perfect, the perfect script, and if you don't believe it, people feel it. And so it's like I think you start with the mindset, and then once you believe in it or believe in yourself, then you start focusing on what you say, how you say it, the psychology behind sales, and get into some of those things.
If this conversation is sounding intimidating to somebody who's listening, who's already kind of getting anxious thinking about the idea of going and selling things, let alone quitting their job and pursuing it full time, what are some ways that they can get started just in their free time, learning the ropes and seeing if it's something that's going to work for them?
Yeah, I think there's lots of good books and podcasts out there. Some of my favorite, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss is one of my all-time favorites, which is more about negotiation, which to me is still sells. Um, I I think though, what someone could really do is start changing how they view themselves as a salesperson. And so one of the things, and I'll share it with your listeners. I have people go through 10 questions and answer some questions a different way, and it gives them a sales archetype, or basically a persona that they can view themselves selling. So, hey, am I a servant leader? Am I the ultimate guide? Am I a trusted advisor? To kind of view themselves in a different light when it
Mm.
comes to sales, because I think the narrative we tell ourselves about how we're going to show up and help people can be really powerful. And so I think just believing that, hey, what I'm doing is actually serving someone else. If you want access to that resource, you can text sales to 928-928-5985 and take that 10 questions, and it'll give you maybe some strengths and weaknesses you might naturally have in sales, and maybe give you a focus on where you can go. But I think just reframing the way you believe about yourself is the best place to start, and recognize, hey, I can actually serve and help somebody by being in sales.
Is this something you can do part-time? Can you start selling something on the side? Is that possible?
Oh, totally. Yeah. In fact, Um, yeah, I know a lot of people who have. I've always found the best way to do it is to go all in personally. I think it's easy to put one foot into sales, leave one foot out, try to do sales on the side. I've also found those that do make that successful transition. So I think if you're going to get into sales, you have to approach it with a mindset of, hey, I'm going to do this for 6 or 12 months, as if there's no other option, whether that's part time or not. And yeah, I know people in door to door, especially, that get into that in their first year. They're making $100,000 or more with no experience in sales, no college degree, nothing, and doing it ethically and honestly.
Yeah. Is there a product service company type that you would say, like, if you're looking at it, this would probably be like your best bet in terms of maximizing your time spent learning the skill of selling, selling a good product that solves a real need for a lot of people while also maximizing the commissions and the time that you're spending actually selling this thing? Is there a certain place you'd recommend people start?
Yeah, probably two or three industries. I would look at one. Um, One or two of those industries. Probably pest control is a really good one. And a lot of times you get into a pest control company, they're going to give you a lot of sales training.
Hmm.
And so that can be a very good entry level, fairly easy sales process
Yeah.
to learn. I feel
Super
like
low
roof,
commitment from the customer. You
yeah,
could you could sell 12 of them in a day.
right,
Really low contractual,
right,
effort. You don't even have to get into the house to sell it. You can sell it on the doorstep.
right, yeah, absolutely. Roofing's another good industry where you're going to get higher commissions, so you're going to not have as many sales opportunities a day, or as many people you can sell. A lot of times, I see roofing companies are working with insurance, so it can make it a no-brainer for the client. If we can get your insurance to cover the claim of your roof,
Mm-hmm,
can be
mm-hmm.
easy. I love solar. Solar's gotten a lot more difficult for new people to get in and do well at. And so
Just
it's
because the
not as
saturation of pitches that people are getting, or
saturation, utilities constantly changing things, batteries becoming a bigger part of it. So it's become a much more complicated process than it used to be. Tax credits are changing and evolving, and so very good industry. And people can start off in an industry like that, and that industry's kind of changed where they start you off as an appointment setter.
hmm,
But when you get good at that, then you start closing your own deals instead of doing everything start to finish. And I sold insurance for years. I think that's another great entry level sales position you can get into. Oftentimes it requires a license. And so for some, that's
sure.
usually the biggest hurdle, is actually taking the test and getting the license. But I think those are all great places you can start.
Yeah, there's low hanging fruit everywhere, man. That's kind of the point. Is just like some of these things. Like, again, if you're a homeowner and you're listening, you're like, "Oh, well, we got solar. I actually really like our solar.
Yeah.
Great. Have you kind of like accidentally told other people about it? Is this something that
Right.
you're kind of already evangelizing a little bit? Well, then maybe take your weekends, take some of your
Yeah.
evenings, and see if this is something that you could really sink your teeth into, because you can make, I mean, depending on how much you want to work, the
Yeah,
volume
right,
of work ethic that you have, and your ability to withstand the rejection, you can
right,
make anywhere from an extra 30-40 grand a year just selling a few deals here and there to literally a $500,000 a year
right.
selling solar full time. So there's a wide range of income potential here. It's just a matter of getting in, sinking your teeth in, and committing to learning the skill. Even
Yeah,
if it is starting on the side, even if you have a good job and you got to provide for your family, like I get all that. There's stresses and there's pressure that everybody has. But if you are currently frustrated with your situation that you're in and you're not doing anything to actively get yourself out of that situation, it's not just going to change magically. Time
right.
doesn't just change your situation. You have to actively change that situation, which means you might need to give up some weekends. You might need to give up some nights at home. You may need to give up the next Netflix binge and spend your time learning a skill like selling, because regardless of whatever you do, selling will help you do it better, no matter
Yeah,
what it is. Even if it's a management role inside of a corporation, what, like, you have to sell your team to
yeah,
follow your vision for the
yep,
department. Like, it is, and like you said, even in communication, even if it's not even a selling conversation, like we were talking about with your wife,
yeah,
it's like, oh, I'm better at listening now, because you have to be a good listener to be a good salesperson. Oh, my
right.
empathy is increased because you have to have empathy to be a good salesperson. Like, there's these little communication things that you pick up along the way, and I think those types of skills are going to be the recession proof, future proof skills that are super underrated currently. I think those are going to be the skills that take people in the next portions of their career, especially with AI coming out and all the things that it's going to be replacing. This is one of those things that's not going to replace, at least for some time.
Yeah, and if you're running a new business, you're really your job is sales. That's your biggest job when you start a new business.
Yep.
You might think, "Hey, I've opened up a plumbing company." It's like, "No, I'm selling myself as a plumber to people."
You're either
Um,
going to be that salesperson, or you better have a partner that's good at it.
right. Mhm.
Somebody's got to be selling something. Cash is oxygen, and the only barrier to cash is your ability to sell what you have to offer.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Drew, this has been awesome, man. Thanks for being willing to do this. Where can people go to get more from you and the Everyday Leader podcast and things like that?
Yeah, so we do have a podcast. It's more focused on leadership called the Everyday Leader Podcast. And then as far as my personal content around sales, you can follow me on Instagram, the Everyday Sales Leader, or on YouTube, the Everyday Sales Leader. I try to post regular sales content there, and if you go to either of those places, you can get access to an online sales community and sales course I have. Is a
The
good and
Everyday,
the course is no cost if someone wants to get
great.
started. So
The Everyday Sales Leader. Go check out some of the stuff that Drew is putting out if you want to increase your ability to sell, regardless of if you're trying to turn it into a side hustle, you're trying to make extra cash on the side, or you're trying to do this thing full time. Whatever it is, we all could use a little bit of sharpening in the sales arena. So, Drew, thanks so much for being willing to do this. Everybody else listening to me, remember, money only solves your money problems, but it is a little bit easier to solve the rest of your problems if you got some money in the bank. So let's solve that problem first here on the Travis Makes Money podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you guys next time. Peace out.